So what did she do? She just didn't show up to Turkey, got a wrist surgery a month late, a month after she could have, and then tore up her contract, which you're not allowed to.
Dominique Malonga might have just made the biggest mistake of her young career, and the fallout could be massive. A 19-year-old phenom with superstar potential, a future face of French basketball, and one of Europe's brightest young talents, is now staring down a possible World Cup ban.
Like, I'm gonna be very honest, you can't do that. Like, you legally cannot do that with no consequences. And WNBA fans are like demanding Fenerbahce just let her go. It's like, doesn't work like that. I'm sorry, by that logic, like, you know, but I was about to say, by that logic, anyone can just quit on their contracts. They don't, like, contracts don't matter, but like DeWanna Bonner has shown that.
Why? Because she did something almost no player dares to do. She tore up her contract with one of Europe's biggest powerhouses, Fenerbahce. Yep, just ripped it apart and walked away. And now, the entire basketball world, from FIBA headquarters to Turkish fans to even some WNBA voices, is exploding. Some are calling her bold, others say reckless. But make no mistake, Dominique Malonga has stepped into a storm that could change how women's basketball handles contracts, loyalty, and international power dynamics forever. Because here's the truth. When you play under FIBA, contracts aren't just pieces of paper. They're binding agreements that tie players, teams, and federations together. You don't just walk away from one, not without consequences. And the crazy part, WNBA fans online are acting like this is no big deal. They're defending her decision like it's some personal choice, while completely ignoring how Fenerbahce fans, who watch their team invest, promote, and plan around Malonga, are absolutely furious.
The problem is that this isn't a real sports league. But like, Fenerbahce fans are going mad at Malonga, and Malonga screwed them. She absolutely screwed them. However, do you want to know who isn't going to be very happy with this scenario? Do you want to know who is not going to be happy? FIBA. Because, you know, FIBA is the world governing basketball body, and yeah, you know,
it's drama, it's chaos, and it's all unfolding in real time. So today on Her Hoops, we're diving deep into how Dominique Malonga went from rising superstar to international controversy in a matter of days, and why this move might not just cost her money, it could cost her a shot at the World Cup itself. Because if FIBA decides to make an example out of her, things are about to get very ugly.
It is more above board than the NBA. It is more, I don't even know where this was originally. I don't even know where this was originally, but it's more above board than the NBA. Like, this is the world governing body of basketball. This is not a league. This is not like, people are like, oh, FIBA play. FIBA play is not a league. FIBA is not the Olympics. FIBA is literally the world governing body of basketball.
This is Her Hoops, and we're pulling no punches. Let's get into it. To really understand how we got here, you need to know just how big Dominique Malonga had become, and how shocking this contract scandal truly is. Malonga wasn't just some promising young player. She was the next big thing in European women's basketball, a 6'4" athletic beast out of France, drawing comparisons to Asia Wilson and Candace Parker before she could even legally order a drink in the US. When Fenerbahce, the Turkish juggernaut of women's basketball, signed her to a 3-year contract earlier this year, it was seen as a massive win. They locked in one of the most exciting players in the world through 2028, the kind of deal that could keep them dominant in the EuroLeague for years. Fans in Istanbul were ecstatic. Highlight reels, posters, hype videos. The club went all in on Malonga. She wasn't just a player, she was part of their brand. And then she vanished. Reports started surfacing that Malonga never even showed up to Turkey. She delayed her wrist surgery, something that should have been handled a month earlier. Then, out of nowhere, she tore up her contract and walked away.
They are not going to be out here letting the biggest star outside the WNBA playing outside the WNBA and not playing Unrivaled quit. So you can see here, a possibility with consequences remain to be addressed, but there is a scenario where the International Federation FIBA could prevent Malonga from participating in various matches with the French team until the situation is resolved. This projection will have no consequence for the November gathering, which will take place in Spain. Blues without many key players, which could stretch until the qualifying tournament for the World Cup scheduled in March. It has no consequence because she's injured. She's injured, she's not going to be playing in that one anyway.
No notice, no settlement, no negotiation, just gone. To say Fenerbahce fans were furious is an understatement. They felt betrayed, not only because they lost their young star, but because of how it happened. Meanwhile, online, WNBA fans were doing what WNBA fans do, defending Malonga at all costs. They said, let her go, it's her life, her choice. But here's the thing, FIBA doesn't play those games. Unlike the WNBA or the NBA, where player empowerment reigns supreme, FIBA operates under international law. When a contract is registered through them, it becomes a federation-backed agreement. That means tearing it up isn't just bad optics, it's a potential violation. And that's why whispers are now spreading that FIBA could suspend Malonga from international competition, possibly including the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. From next big thing to legal nightmare, this isn't the rookie glow-up Dominique expected. So what actually happened here?
Just because they were scared to like put their foot down because people were like, oh, you know, free agents won't join. I'm like, unpopular opinion, any free agent that won't join your team because a max contract player quit and refused to play and you put your foot down is not a player you want. They're not a player you want in a winning.
Let's break it down, because this story isn't just about one young player making a bad call. It's about how the global basketball system works, and how Dominique Malonga may have underestimated just how deep the consequences go. First, the contract. Fenerbahce didn't just give Malonga a deal. They registered that deal through FIBA, the world governing body of basketball. That means every clause, every payment, and every medical condition became legally binding on an international level. When Malonga chose to skip her scheduled surgery, delay her rehab, and never report to Turkey, she was already skating on thin ice. But when she officially terminated the contract herself, that crossed the line. Because in FIBA's eyes, that's not a player decision, that's a breach of contract. And under FIBA regulations, a breach like that can trigger a suspension that goes far beyond club play. They can block her transfer rights, freeze her international eligibility, and even ban her from representing France in global tournaments until the matter is settled. In other words, if this situation drags on, Malonga could be barred from the 2026 FIBA World Cup. Now, people might say, she'll just sign somewhere else. Nope, that's not how this works. Because every legitimate pro team, whether it's in Turkey, France, Spain, or even the US, has to honor FIBA's international clearances. No clearance, no contract. And then there's the money. Malonga was reportedly on a multi-year deal worth upwards of $200,000 per year, plus a transfer fee Fenerbahce paid to secure her rights, roughly $90,000. If she walks, she could be on the hook for all of it.
If the legal stuff's going on, she will not be allowed to play. They have to come to some sort of a buyout agreement. There has to be a buyout agreement. And the buyout agreement is not, oh, Fenerbahce, you're going to pay her to leave. No. The buyout agreement is Malonga's going to have to pay Fener. And maybe Malonga doesn't pay Fener herself. I've said this, maybe whether it's Unrivaled, whether it's Project B, whatever it is, she could be injured for this season and then...
That's not player empowerment. That's a potential six-figure penalty for tearing up a deal she signed. So the question becomes, why would someone this talented, this smart, and this promising risk everything? That's where the story starts to get even messier. Here's where the story blows wide open, because Dominique Malonga's decision might not have been a simple, I don't want to play here anymore. No, there's growing speculation that bigger forces are at play. Let's start with this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, tears up a 3-year, six-figure FIBA registered contract without backup. You don't do that at 19 unless someone with deep pockets or powerful influence is whispering in your ear saying, we'll handle it. And right now, the #1 suspect, a new women's basketball project reportedly being built as a rival to the WNBA, Project B, or possibly even Unrivaled, the league Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart have been teasing. Think about it. You're Dominique Malonga. You're young, explosive, marketable, a French superstar in the making. The WNBA wants you. EuroLeague teams want you. And now there's a new global league trying to make headlines. What's the best way to make a splash? Steal the future GOAT from Europe's biggest club. But here's the catch. Fenerbahce's not the Indiana Fever. They don't just let things slide. In the WNBA, when a player like Dewana Bonner forced her way out, everyone moved on. No lawsuits, no bans, no problem. But Europe? Entirely different world. Fenerbahce operates like a Champions League football club. They've got lawyers, money, and massive influence inside FIBA. FIBA. So when Malonga walked away, she didn't just offend a team, she embarrassed one of the most powerful sports institutions in Europe. And that's where FIBA's intervention becomes almost inevitable, because if they let this slide, what's stopping other players from doing the same? Tear up your contract, get a new deal elsewhere, and act like nothing happened. That's chaos, and FIBA runs on control. Behind closed doors, FIBA officials are reportedly debating whether to block Malonga's clearance for France's upcoming tournaments. If they do, she's done internationally until this is resolved. And here's the cruel twist. She's still recovering from surgery. So right now, she can't play anywhere. No EuroLeague, no national team, no new contract, just uncertainty. If she doesn't settle this legally and financially, Malonga could go from being the baby goat of Europe to basketball's cautionary tale. Let's strip the headlines away and talk real consequences. Dominique Malonga didn't just walk out on a team. She violated the chain of trust that makes international basketball function. Under FIBA's international contract system, every player deal must go through approval by both the club's national federation and FIBA itself.
There is no way, especially because in these European leagues, it's only the tippity top tier players that sign long-term deals. Maybe they fucked her. Maybe they fucked her and they offered her 70k a year because, you know, it was her first year in EuroLeague for 3 years and she didn't know how good she was going to be. And maybe, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if she has somebody backing her ready to pay. But I would say she's going to have to come up with a amount of money that Fenerbahce are happy to take.
And FIBA has used those penalties before. Players who broke contracts in the past, even for smaller disputes, have faced year-long suspensions or been forced to repay their entire earnings plus damages. So when Malonga decided to tear up her deal, she wasn't just walking into legal territory, she was walking into a minefield. Let's talk numbers for a second. Fenerbahce paid roughly $90,000 in transfer fees to acquire her rights, and were expected to pay her around $200,000 annually. A serious payday for a teenager in women's basketball. That means Fenerbahce now holds every financial card. To get out clean, Malonga, or whoever's backing her, would need to buy out the contract, not the other way around. That could easily cost $300,000 or more once transfer, salary, and legal expenses are added up. And remember, this is all while she's rehabbing from wrist surgery. She's not playing, not earning, and might not even be cleared to join another team until this mess is sorted. Then there's her reputation. Until this year, Malonga was known as the humble prodigy, baby goat, the next generational European star. But now, that image is cracked. European fans are furious, Turkish media is tearing her apart, and even French journalists are questioning her advisors. She's young, sure, but at this level, young doesn't protect you from contracts, lawyers, or governing bodies. If she doesn't find a settlement fast, she could face not only a financial nightmare, but a career freeze, a limbo that could rob her of the one thing every athlete fears losing most: momentum. Because in sports, timing is everything, and Malonga's timing couldn't be worse. This scandal isn't just about Dominique Malonga anymore. It's a flashpoint in a much bigger battle between the WNBA, Europe, and FIBA for control over the future of women's basketball. For years, players have been stuck in the middle of a global tug-of-war. The WNBA wants to be the premier destination for talent, but it pays a fraction of what Europe offers. Meanwhile, EuroLeague teams like Fenerbahce and UMMC Ekaterinburg shell out huge contracts and treat their players like royalty. Private jets, five-star housing, full medical coverage. But now, a new wave of American players, led by stars like Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Nafisa Collier, are creating something different: Unrivaled, a domestic alternative that promises freedom, higher pay, and less control from traditional organizations like FIBA or the WNBA. And Malonga's situation fits right into that chaos. Because if she really did rip up her Fenerbahce contract to join an independent league like Project B or Unrivaled, that's not just a personal move, that's a statement. A young European phenom saying, "I don't need the system, I am the system."
Like, you just can't. I get it, Dawn Bonner essentially did it, but like the Fever just dealt with that in the worst situation possible. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy, but there's a very good chance Dominique Malonga, unless there's no way she thought this, unless she has another backer. She's so smart. I love Dom. Dom's such a smart person.
But here's the problem. Europe still runs on structure. Contracts, federations, transfer fees. They're the foundation of its sports culture. So when a player breaks that structure, it's seen as betrayal, not empowerment. That's the cultural clash we're watching unfold. American fans look at Malonga and say, good for her! Take control of your career. But European fans, especially in Turkey and France, see arrogance, irresponsibility, and disrespect. And then there's FIBA, which suddenly finds itself in a dangerous position. If they punish Malonga harshly, they look authoritarian and outdated. But if they let her go unpunished, they risk opening Pandora's box, setting a precedent that lets players walk out of contracts whenever they want. One decision from FIBA could redefine the power dynamics between players, clubs, and leagues across the entire basketball world. Dominique Malonga's scandal isn't just a story about one athlete. It's the first true test case in a new era of women's basketball power politics. The question is, who's really in charge now, the players or the system? Dominique Malonga's story isn't finished yet, but right now, it's hanging by a thread. The 19-year-old who once looked destined to be Europe's next superstar now finds herself trapped in a maze of contracts, lawyers, and headlines. What was supposed to be her breakout year has turned into a cautionary tale about how fast the basketball world can turn on you when business gets involved. Here's the cold truth. Talent alone doesn't protect you from the system, and in this case, the system has its receipts. Fenerbahce has the signed contract, FIBA has the regulations, and every agent and lawyer. Either way, Dominique Malonga just changed the conversation. And here's what makes it even more fascinating. She might have known exactly what she was doing, because if Unrivaled or another upstart league is backing her financially, then Malonga's risk suddenly looks like a strategic gamble. Take the short-term pain, make the long-term power move. Walk away from a European system built on control and join something new, something player-owned. It's bold, it's reckless, it's revolutionary, but it's also dangerous. Because if this backfires, she doesn't just lose money, she loses time. And in sports, time is everything. Every season you miss, every month you're sidelined, someone else is out there taking your spotlight. So now, all eyes are on FIBA. Will they come down hard to make an example of her? Or will they quietly settle, allowing this to fade into a forgotten chapter of a young player's learning curve? No matter what happens, one thing's for sure. This story just changed the power game in women's basketball forever. Dominique Malonga is either about to become the most defiant prodigy the sport has ever seen, or the first major casualty of the new player empowerment era. And we'll be watching every step of the way, right here on Her Hoops, where we break down the drama, the deals, and the truth behind women's basketball's biggest headlines. So if you want the full, unfiltered story, hit that like button, drop your take in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, the Malonga saga is far from over.